So we're here this evening, and I thank you for joining us. And we've done, as I say, a Monday evening, and I hope that works for most people. We're going to start now, and we're aiming to finish at 8. If there's less questions by 7:30 or what time we finish, it doesn't matter. But I need to finish by 8 o'clock. So I think that's 90 minutes, gives us enough time. It's an opportunity for anybody to ask any questions. We have some real experts amongst us. We have our accountant, Brian, we have Amit, who's here, finance, Kundan's here. We have lots of property experts as well. Emmanuel's joined us. So any questions, happy to answer. Or if there's any discussions that you want to have, again, this is an opportunity to say, let's have a discussion, let's have a chat. As we said before, property can be lonely, but that has now changed, of course, because the technology has changed. We're, as many of you know, we're on Clubhouse at 7:30 in the morning, every morning for 5 mornings. This Zoom happens once a month. We meet in person. So there is a lot of help and support available. So yeah, any questions, happy to take. We don't know the answers. I'm sure somebody on the panel will, somebody here will. And there's no hierarchy. Anybody can jump in and answer the questions. Anybody got any thoughts on any questions they are looking to discuss? If you just joined us, great to see you all. And yeah, I think the number's just gone up from 22 to 32. So 10 people have just joined us. So good evening and good to see you. Right in the middle of my screen is Victoria. I've met you on Clubhouse, but never seen you in person. So good to see you there. Was that a question?
No, it wasn't a question. I was just saying hello. Nice to see you in person.
And you, Victoria, and
yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'll ask a quick question. Looking at the interest rate, what are the best strategies for one to consider? What's the best way forward?
Victoria, it's a fantastic question. When you say what's the best strategy, in what respect?
Looking at the interest rate, for me, I'm used to doing refurbs, and then I remortgage the property back, take some money out and go again.
Yeah.
But with the current markets, the rates of the interest rate, the bridge loans, it's just not working out. The deals doesn't stack. So I was wondering if some of the more experienced investors can advise.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to come in, or anybody else want to come in there on what people are doing to make sure they get all their money out?
Can I just suggest, have you attempted gambling? That might be a good starting point. No, I'm only joking. I think there are still deals to be done in the market. There's still plenty of money to be made in the market. You just have to find the right unit, the right place, the right property that makes the right amount of money. I would say, Victoria, I think that is the number one thing for, I think it's, most of this is just common sense anyways, right? Your the business of single-let properties is dead. If there's anybody here who says they are still able to make money by renting properties as family homes, please tell me, please educate me, because I don't know. There's across the UK, no matter where, even if you're buying in County Durham, you're still going to have, even if you're buying something for 50-60 grand and you're making 400-500 pounds rent, even those properties won't stack up anymore. It's just that bad a situation. So the only two residential type properties, or two types of properties that or two types of deal structures that work at the moment, either you run high cash flowing HMOs, if that is your thing, excuse me, or you do serviced accommodation. If you want to stick in residential, other than that, other than HMOs and SAs, the only other thing you can do is, but then these are long-term cash flow strategies. You asked about strategies, right? So these are long-term cash flow strategies. If you want to pick up the type of projects that you can pick up and do, i.e. where you would put your own brick and mortar down, those could be commercial conversions can work, HMO conversions can work. All of these are still viable. But at the end of the day, if you're doing a commercial to resi conversion at the moment, or even a new build development, then you still need to know whether you still need an exit. With the sales market being so soft at the moment, your only chance is buying to hold for the long term, in my view. And if you're buying to hold for the long term, what you want is something that's cash flowing well. And it then comes down to those two strategies. Either you do serviced accommodation or you do HMOs. Those are the only ones that will work. Of course, commercial is a whole different kettle of fish, so I won't go there. But if that is what you want to do, those are your options.
Thank you so
Brilliant.
much for that.
Victoria, thank you for the question. Kundan, thank you for coming in on that. Really appreciate it. I know a few of you have just joined us. Tammy, good evening. Imran, good evening. And the question was from Victoria about what she does in terms of how she can get her money back out from deals, etc. Craig has put Craig Shepherd has put a comment in the chat. He must be busy at the moment, but he said, look for motivated sellers who are desperate to sell. So I think that is very, very key. And the second part of that, or the flip side of that coin, is don't become a motivated buyer. So there are motivated sellers out there. And I have found more recently that I went on holiday about 3 weeks ago, and there was a lady there, and we were just chatting because it was one of those places which we was just chatting, and she was saying that her mortgage had increased from £1,600 or £1,700 to £3,200, and this is a basic residential mortgage. She said she works in the city, a really good income. She said, I can afford it at the moment, but if it continues, I don't know what I'm going to do. So there are people that are, you would see them as well off, lovely home, lovely car from the outside. But of course, the interest rate has gone up so much for them that it's not their fault. They're just trying to make ends meet by like anybody else. And so in that situation, we suggested that she gets a lodger in to get some money because she wasn't a landlady and she didn't want to get. So that was one of the suggestions that we put to her. But yeah, there is a worrying time where people are going to be are already facing the pinch. We're not. I mean, Kundan said about a softening of the market. We're not seeing that in Kent at the moment. Well, in Sittingbourne where I am, people are still. We're putting properties on, and they're still moving. There are still people selling. There's still people buying. But we have this. Sittingbourne's an hour away from London with a direct rail link, British Rail. So we are finding that people are selling in London and then moving down this way, and they have been for the last 4 or 5 years because we had a big development in the town. We actually got Costa in, and places, things like that, M&S, which was never here before. So we really come up in the world, and yeah, there are people moving in. So look for, I think that the tip there from Craig, which I totally agree with, is look for motivated sellers. And I think Kundan said about making sure the deal stacks, but the deals used to stack, but then you have to take into account, of course, the fees and everything else that goes alongside it.
Fantastic.
So
Thank you so much for that.
No, brilliant question. And it's good to see you as well.
Jump onto that motivated sellers side a little bit. Now, I'm going out doing viewings, property that is in, worse for wear condition, needs a bit of work, needs a bit of doing up to and the game is to essentially rent and hold for the long term, possibly flip, but basically hold for now. Yes, I'm putting offers in. Yes, I'm making sure the stacks and the profits are there, but offers are just being rejected at the moment. I mean, some places, they're not willing to go, much below asking price. They really want to get, as much as they want. But
how many viewings have you done, and how many offers?
Out now, just you call me when you're ready, kind of thing. There's my offer. Here it is on the table. Call me when you're ready, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how many offers have you made?
I've done 3 or 4 viewings today, a couple last week, and just put them out there. I'll chase them up in another week or two again, saying, you know, what's going on? Are they ready to accept? What do they want? And then, you know, they're just like, oh yeah, you know, they want asking price. They'll probably go about 5 to 10 below, but not much, you know, not much further than that.
The timing has got to be right for the person, and as it says, it's a motivated. They're not motivated as yet. There is not enough pain, and the story I'll tell you is that this young boy goes. If you imagine an American, you know, where they sit outside the house on a veranda, and the granddad's sitting back on his chair, and the grandson goes up to the dad and says, "Why does the dog every so often make a noise?" And the granddad says, "Well, because it's sat on a nail, and every so often that nail catches him, and he gets hurt, and and he makes a noise." And he says, says, "Granddad, well, why doesn't he just move?" And the granddad says, "Well, there's not enough pain. So when there's enough pain, and that person is motivated, they'll come back to you." And I'll put that into reality. 2008, I helped an old gentleman here in our town, and he was about to be repossessed. And I wrote a letter to the court saying that we'd be marketing his property and that we were having interest, but no aspect was coming along. And please, could I request 6 months to help this gentleman? The court actually agreed to that. He actually stayed in the property another year before he'd got a repossession order. So that's 18-month period after that. And he came back to me and he said, "I'd like you to buy the property," because he knew we were interested. And he became motivated at that stage. And at that time, we were actually able to rent it back to him. We bought the property, rented it back to him. But of course, now you can't rent it back to him. You can put him in another one of your rental properties. So you could move him into one of your properties, and then that property then has become vacant that you've purchased at a below market rate. I think,
yeah, the couple that I've seen have been repos. Certainly 2 or 3 of them have been repos. But same scenario, you know, you're right. I need to wait for them to hit the nail and feel the pain, because at the moment they're just holding out till they can get a better price.
yeah, and it's all they've, with the greatest respect, and I don't know them, but it may be that it's all they have because it's their biggest asset, it's their home, everything is theirs, where they have their memories. And
oh no, these are empty now. They've actually been repoed and empty. They're empty places now. They're just a shell.
They'll come back. They'll come back, and if they don't come back, you'll get another one, but you will find them. And I think it's believing that. And again, I was so inspired by TikTok I saw this morning from Harry Williams. He's on our Clubhouse room, and I spoke to him this morning at 7:30, or the group did, and we said to him, "So can you tell us what happened? How did you start in property?" And he made 156 phone calls, 156 phone calls to letting agents before he got his first deal. And he got it on the 157th deal. And so, yeah, he made 156 calls. He actually made 157th because that's the one that actually said, "Yes, we will do this." So the guy's 20, and he just said, "I spent 2-3 hours a day just picking up the phone, talking to letting agents and asking if they've got anybody." And we said to him, "Well, when were you going to start?" And I don't think he would have stopped, because he used every single call as a learning experience. And he was making notes of, why am I being rejected? And he honed his skills. And honestly, if you're on Clubhouse, go back to that this morning and the first half an hour. Very, very inspirational, because he didn't let go. He just continued. So, you know, that's why I asked the question, how many offers are being made? What is it? We will go back as an estate agent. We will go back to somebody, say, "Look, the price has reduced, or this has happened," because we're still trying to get to a deal. So give it time, talk to more people. Anybody else want to come in on that? Yeah, Kundan.
Okay, so this is here's the point. So this is a very good point Ravi raised a moment ago. So this is what I'm doing. Any purchases that we want to make or anything that we are looking at, I'm now sort of doing this the other way around. Instead of going, viewing properties, making offers, and then getting people to reject, because that's no good to anybody. So the way I'm doing things now is, to all the agents in my network, if I like something, if you want to buy something, we would go have a chat with them on the phone. I don't need to go and physically see the property. I don't even go and see the property. If it's listed at 220, prima facie, I've seen the floor plan. If you guys remember the last month when I did this, I did a live deal finding workshop on Rightmove while we were on the Zoom last month. So you might remember the things that I look at. So for instance, I'll be looking at a floor plan of a property. So if a floor plan is there, I would ask them on the phone, is this floor plan correct? Are these data points correct? Are my assumptions correct? Let's say if it's marketed for 250,000, I would, before even going and seeing the property, if my relationship with the agent is good, I would just say, look, I'd be interested in buying. My purchase price on this will be based on what I'm buying at the moment. I'll be paying between 180 and 190K. Speak to your vendor first. If your vendor is amenable and they're happy to take, this will be a cash purchase, will whatever, exchange within 4 to 6 weeks, etc. All of the standard jazz that you give, you do that. But I will only come and view the property if you tell me that the vendor is amenable to that. So I want the vendor to be amenable to my price point before I even go and see the property. That's how we have shortcut a lot of the process. So I'm not even going and seeing the property. If it's advertised at 230 to 250 asking, I know that was the price a year ago. The estate agent hasn't moved. The sellers still want their top dollar. I just go and say 180 to 190 with the view of settling for 200, let's say. So so I have already put my stake on the ground effectively. So you're not working with their stake on the ground, they're working with yours. You're saying, I am willing to pay this amount on this. There's no point in me coming and seeing the property. What's the point of coming and seeing beige, dirty beige carpets and rundown property and whatever? As long as it's structurally safe, as long as the walls are not crumbling down, if you're telling me that is the case, Mr. Agent, I trust you, I take your word for it. On that basis that there are no structural defects, I will be willing to buy this for this figure. That's how we are approaching. And the result of that is, instead of doing 25, 30, 40 viewings, I'm only doing 3 or 4 viewings. I'm not going out and do it, because for 2 reasons. A, I don't have the time to go out and do as many viewings anymore. And B, my time is more valuable now, so I need to be able to prioritize those ones that people are willing to genuinely take. Now, just because I have on the phone mentioned to them that I'm willing to make that 180, 190 offer doesn't mean that it's going to be a done deal. For all you know, we'll go there and we might not go through with it. But that will reduce a lot of that effort.
Are you finding that they're receptive to that? I mean, okay, granted, it's 200, you're willing to put 170, 180 as your maximum bid. I mean, yeah, you're right. Worst case scenario, what's it going to be? Yes or no? That's it, kind of. If it's a no, fine, move on to the next one. If it's a yes, go and see it, negotiate a little bit further, and then take it from there, basically.
No, actually not. So the funny thing is, you can do so much with this. You will get to understand where they stand in the broader scheme of things. Okay, so let me. Sunil, first of all, I don't want to hijack this. So tell me if I'm able, if you are okay for me to share my screen, I can show a live conversation with an estate agent, or do you want me to park that for later?
No, I'd love you to do that. I just want to say, as I said before, we have an estate agency here. This is not an image or anything like that. I am actually real as well. It's not AI or anything like that. This is an actual office that I'm here. and we have a property that we were marketing online, and Kundan made an offer last week. And our sales guy, this is a real story. Yeah, I know Kundan. He's, you know, he's seen a property. He's phoned into to Elliot, our sales guy, and he said, I'm making an offer. I think it was 180 and the property's 220 or 230. Yeah, and he's actually, what he's saying, he's actually done, because we're sitting here going, okay, yeah, that's an offer. And, you know, we'll work the offer. If we can get it for Kundan at that price, all well and good. And we'll talk to the vendor and say, we have a duty of care. We have a duty, legal duty, to present any offers that are presented to us. So even if I thought Kundan's offer was not good, or it would have a bad reflection on us as an agent, we just need to present it in the right way and say, we've received an offer. We understand it's not where you need to be, but, you know, we have a legal obligation to give you to present this offer to you. That figure has been put in their mind. Now, they may start working overnight and talking to each other, and it may take them a month or 2 months. They may come back to us and say, is that offer still on the table? At that stage, we'd go back to Kundan and say, you know, you offered on that. Would you like to come and take a look, etc.? So be patient, keep putting the offers in, and exactly what he's saying is absolutely what he did last week, and he didn't even know that I was going to share that story. So yes, I'm gonna, Kundan, I'll come to you, but I'm going to also, we're going to speak to Tammy in a minute, because I know she had a question in the chat, in the WhatsApp group this morning as well, which was fantastic. So yeah, Kundan, if you want to share, then I think Dan will set you up for sharing. Is that okay with everyone?
Sorry, is my screen visible? Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, brilliant. Okay, so what I'm showing you is this is just one random conversation with one agent that I'm speaking to, right? He's presented a property, blah, 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 200,000 offer. There is the brochure of the property, whatever they want in excess of 200. My response to him is, look, I'd be interested in buying this, but at the current fair market value, okay? Please read this note carefully. I would consider buying this property at the current fair market value. We would be happy to do a chain-free cash purchase at £170,000. This is a serious offer and it reflects the current market and how the market is going to behave over the next 2 quarters. If the vendor is amenable, we can move as quick as they want. We will work closely with you and the sellers to ensure the sale goes over the line and in an agreed time frame. I can send you the proof of funds and share our solicitor details once the offer has been accepted. Please have a chat with the seller and explain to them who we are and our position. So again, this helps if you are established, you've got a track record in the market, people know you, then that helps. Obviously, you know, it'll take time. But if you're able to establish that you've done this time and time again, people will be open to that. Now, here's the other thing, the last postscript. Just so you know, I'm buying a number of other properties in the area, which is similar to whatever that 41 Fairlight Avenue is, at prices between 160 and 170, and I've offered top money on the current market comparables, right? So the estate agent took whatever period of time he took. Then he says, is this an official offer? So this is the back and forth we have, right? And then my response to him is, all offers are official offers. However, what I tell our estate agent partners is, this is not a game of yes or no. Most people are selling their first and most valuable asset, and they don't. Again, you have to sometimes, depending on how senior or how junior the guy is on the other end, coach the estate agent as well sometimes on how conversations are meant to be had with their sellers. Even these estate agents, some of these are young people, young boys and girls in the job. You have to explain to them, it's not a yes or no game. Most people are selling their first and most valuable asset. They don't do this very often. Of course, there will be plenty of interested parties and tire kickers in the sale. It doesn't cost anything to become an interested party, but here we are. This is what we do. This is what we do for a living, etc., etc., etc. Establish your credentials, establish your credibility in the market, and then you go. And then he will come back. He came back 3 days later saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. The vendor doesn't want," as Ravi rightly said, the vendor doesn't want to take 170, but he will take 195. That's a start, right? That's a good start. It took the vendor a week to realize that they need to reduce the price. And at least my email has given the estate agent that ammunition. So then again, gone back to the estate agent today, just an hour ago, I've gone back and said, look, unfortunately, sellers are still living in a bubble. You need to go and explain this. You can't be pricing this based on July 2022 prices. These are July 2023 prices. We are still open to a cash acquisition with a view to complete in 6 to 4 weeks. That is my strongest point. That is my strongest point. 4 to 6 weeks, I'm happy to exchange and complete in, right? If I'm able to offer this, tell me how many buyers in the market at the moment are able to do that. And that is where I think you need to basically come in and say, what is your strongest offering? Why should the seller sell to you? That is the question.
Fantastic, Kundan, and that's an amazing example you've given us just off the cuff there. So was the original price 225 or 255?
Yes, 200 offers over 200. It was originally advertised for 250. They reduced it to 220, 230, 220, 210, 200. I went in, I put my stake on the ground at 170. Now, I know for the fact I can do the deal at maybe 180 to 190. I think 180, I can still make it stack for me. So it would still work for me at 180 or maybe even 185, you know, because this market value on this would be, let's say, 230 to 250. Even with a 10% reduction, that would be 220.
And he's come back to you at 190?
Yes. So
he
we still have a 20 grand gap, but we will close that over the next month or so. You know, there will be the song and dance, but we will eventually close that gap.
So he went from 200 down to 190. So he took 10 grand off, and then you're going to work on that. Great.
One
That's
thing.
the method.
Sunil,
Yes.
Kundan, I enjoyed that conversation you were having with the agent. One thing that I normally do with agents is when I present a cash offer and an offer where I can perform in 4 to 6 weeks to completion, I effectively say to them, this offer is valid for 2 weeks because I need to deploy my capital. If it's not happening with you, it's going to happen with someone else. So I'm giving you 2 weeks to work on the seller. And if you want to move forward with me and you want to complete in 4 to 6 weeks, you have 2 weeks to make this happen. Because the pressure needs to be
100% agree. 100% agree with you, Imran. That is absolutely spot on. So these are again tools in the arsenal of a professional property buyer. These are the things you do. So the way I approach agents is, a lot of agents I will approach and I'll say, look, I've got about £1 million to deploy. I need to buy 4 properties or 6 properties this quarter. Okay. And I'll show you I've got cash. Okay. You know, for the fact that I've got a history of buying properties. Is it now? Question is not for me to come and put an application to you to say, can I please buy your property? It is the other way around. Is it going to be your property that I'm going to buying? As that is exactly the approach that Imran took. That is precise. You have to. It is almost in a pedestal. You need to be there so that the agent aspires to sell to you, rather than you trying to match up with the agent. And again, this works generally with, poorly run estate agencies. I mean, I'm making a sweeping comment here, but generally poorer estate agencies with not that great sort of direction and leadership would buckle under pressure, and they would, because they don't make, and especially independent agencies, right? They're not making any money until they've got the exchange done. So it works generally in those places even more. I've seen.
I'm happy to share one other tip before Sunil, I'll give it back to you.
No, please.
When you go and you do a viewing, and let's say you're meeting an agent for the first time, you've never met this agent before. Do you buy them a coffee? Take a coffee with you and hand them a coffee. Try and get there 15 minutes before the viewing. Get to know the agent, right? And what I mean by that is get to know the agent, not the property, because you've already done the homework on the property. You should have done that before you turned up. Get to know the agent. So ask them, how long have you been working for in this agency? What were you doing before? What do you like to do? Then maybe if they're reciprocating and they're sharing information with you, ask them, what's the business like? What are your numbers like? How are you doing this month with regards to your targets? What do you need to do in order to hit your targets, right? Then you'll understand if there's anything you can do to help them. Right? Even though you're not
About
paying
chemistry.
for them. Yeah, you're not paying them because the seller's obviously paying them. But if there's something you can do to help them achieve their targets, now all of a sudden you've got an in. And then you've got to work on that in.
Ram, some great tips there. Thank you and appreciate that. And Kundan, educating the agent is key, and it's all about language, and it's about giving them the language that they need to go and talk to the vendor with. And as you're correct, you know, there are 26 agents down the road here, and some of the guys change, and if they're not hitting their targets, they move on. So they'll bring somebody else in, go through the manual, they'll train them up, etc. But how do they present offers? Often the assistant manager or the manager of the branch is presenting the offer to the vendor because they've got more experience. But yeah, it's putting that information across in the best light possible. And sometimes when we haven't had offers on a property, it's difficult to communicate with the vendor. And so when an offer does come in, it gives us an opportunity to go back to them and continue to have that conversation, even if it's not the offer they were expecting, because it just gives either, as Kundan has said, they're going to chip away at it, or they may actually turn around and say, well, yes, let's reduce the price. So the agent wins in either situation, either get a sale or they reduce the price, which again gets them closer to the next sale. So really good, some tips from you guys. Thank you for that. Tammy, good evening. I'd like to unmute and introduce yourself and ask a question.
Hi, thanks, Sunil.
Hiya.
Good evening.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Kunda. Good to see you here again. Just before I go into my question, I just want to say, in my experience, I find that when you sort of make your offer, most agents probably say something like, oh, the vendor will not accept that because they've had a higher offer, or that's too low for what they're considering. How do you come back on that? I know, Kundan, maybe share your experience, but I get that pushback and say, oh, no, we've already had a higher offer than that, so the vendor will not consider that. What do you do at that point?
It's all about your demeanor and your confidence level, Temi, because a lot of this comes down to how you're. This is why I said when we are putting an offer out to an agent, it is almost like package. It's a package. The offer figure is only a small number in the whole gamut of things. The number is a number, right? So there are things like what I would always tell the agent is, please counsel your client. Counsel your client. What you would say, what a lawyer would do to their client. Effectively, you are their agent. Explain to them what the market is. This is not a yes or no thing. They need to understand what the market is. Do they know the comparables? Have they? By the way, just so you know, we're talking of 25 Acacia Avenue. Do you know I'm in talks with the seller of 29 Acacia Avenue, and I might probably buy that for 180. Now, that may not necessarily be true, but you can throw that something like that in, and that'll just completely scramble the whole conversation, because what the agent will then think is, oh my God, the next door is selling for a lot lesser, which means my comparables are going to be lower. So even if I get a higher sale price, when a valuation happens on this property, the price will come down. And so those are the things that always helps. So counsel your client is how I always approach.
Thanks, Kunda.
And it's this, Tammy, it's up to you if you use the example of next door, and if you're buying that, it's entirely up to you. But what I would say is,
it's a good trick. It's a good trick to use sometimes. Look, I'm already in conversations with whatever. Let's say you are speaking to Warren Partners and you've got Your Move advertising a property on the next street. Just say, look, by the way, you know, I'm speaking to Jones at Your Move about this property, and they might probably accept a much lower offer. So, you know, we've got the capital to deploy on 2 properties. The question is the second property going to be yours or not? Again, make it as a pedestal for them to jump up to.
Yeah, brilliant. And Tammy, your question was that when the agent says they've already had higher offers, is that correct?
Yes.
So I think I would respond by saying how long ago, so that you're putting them back to them and saying, how long ago was that offer? Because as we've known, the market has changed. And again, you're in a position, because I know you're on Clubhouse, you're educating yourself all the time, to be able to say, oh, since that time, we've had 4 interest rate changes. You know, the housing minister's changed 6 times. You know, we've had 16 new laws introduced. It is just saying that it's changing. And, you know, I don't know who made the offer, by the way. You can also say, I don't know who made the offer. All I know is that what I can do for you and your client is to exchange and complete quick. And I'm totally in agreement with Kundan that it's not just the price, it's the delivery of service, because the worst thing for an agent is agreeing a sale, seeing it through, and then people pull out at the last minute. I've had this, you know, myself, last couple of weeks. We've had a transaction, we've been working on it for 3 months, and the gentleman's pulled out. Nothing we can do about it. But yeah, the higher offer situation is, you know, there are good agents and bad agents, and good buyers and bad buyers, and they may tell you what you think that, you know, they may be telling you what they've been told to tell you, but that not may be the case. So it's a question, and say, well, if you've got an offer, always make the offer and say, I really appreciate you putting my offer forward. Again, they have a legal obligation to do so, and they know that. So put offers in writing, like Kundan's doing, put the offer in writing so that you've got something there. And that would be my couple of tips. But you had other questions, and anybody else want to come on with questions, happy to take those. Or any comments on that particular question before we move on?
What I was going to say very quickly, Temi, is you're the person with the cash. You're the one buying. You need to make sure that you're in the driving seat. You're in a depressed market right now. There are a lot of desperate sellers in the market as we speak, and the situation's only going to get worse. But even if we weren't in a depressed market, as a buyer, you need to make sure that you're in the driving seat, because you're not buying the asset for yourself to live in. You're buying the asset as stock for your portfolio, or you're buying it as stock for whatever your business strategy is. So you need to make sure that you're always in the buying seat. Ultimately, you're dealing with people, and it's a people business. So rather than working on the asset, you need to focus on the person and work on the person.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming in there, Ram. Tammy, you had another?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant.
So the question I put this morning on the group chat was around been going back and forth with my solicitor. I've got this block of 4 flats that we're midway refurb, currently under one title, and we've kind of been having this conversation back and forth on begin to prepare the leases for each of the flat, only to be told that I'm gonna have to pay 4 times stamp duty because I'm going to create a subsidiary company to transfer the leases to, which was a bit news to me. And so at this point, I wanted to just get other people's view in terms of, is that right or not? I think I probably got a clear answer that, I need to get a new solicitor, and I've been looking around, but it'd be good to get the opinions of the of the more advanced
Yeah.
house.
So this morning I didn't have time, but sorry about that. And I just wanted to ask you some more questions. So could you just tell us the structure? So currently the property is held on one title in one company, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, correct.
And is there, and you've got another company underneath or beside it, and there's a holding company?
So I only have one company at the moment.
Yeah.
In the process of creating a subsidiary one or
Underneath
another
it.
company, I guess, but I only have one company at the moment.
Okay. We have our property accountant here, tax accountant. Would you like to come in, sir?
Well, yeah, if you've got a group structure, you've got a group structure in place. And as far as I'm aware, transferring the leases out of the topco into subsidiary, you shouldn't pay. There's an exemption from stamp duty in group structures. So you shouldn't be paying stamp duty, I don't think, on the creation of the lease.
So
Can I just come in? I've just put a note on the chat. Read through this link. This is called the group relief. Okay, this is called group relief. SDLTM 23010 is the code for it. So if you just read through SDLTM 23010, it'll tell you in black and white what you can and can't do. It's a fairly straightforward thing. If you have a group company structure, do you have a parent company and then two subsidiary companies under it? Or is there one company with a child company? What is it?
So I don't have any subsidiary at the moment. I've only got one company. So
easiest is have a group company, have a parent company.
Mhm.
Let's say A is your parent company, B and C are your subsidiary or child companies under it.
Yeah.
And what is it that you're buying? You're buying block of flats?
Yeah, or the bought it, yeah. Or the in one company with the
Already bought it.
Already bought it,
You
yes.
already hold it. Okay. Is that encumbered, unencumbered? Is there a mortgage on it?
Actually, it's a direct vendor. It's a vendor finance, sorry. So,
Oh God, all of this complication. Okay. On the transaction, when you say vendor financed and all of that, is there a whose name is on the title deed? The vendor's name is currently on the title deed.
Not my company name is on the title.
Your name is so why is it vendor finance then? So you own it, right?
Yes, I own it.
Okay,
It's
but the vendor is
it's
giving you a
Mark.
loan for the period.
So again, Kunda?
So the vendor is giving you a loan for a period for you to repay the money. Okay.
Exactly.
Let's say the company is called B. Okay. Who are the shareholders? Are you and your partner the shareholders, or do you have others?
Just me.
Just you. Perfect. Brilliant. Now, what you need to do is you need to create a new company called A. Okay. That will cost you £12.50 on this thing. Or if you go to Tide Bank, they will open a free account and a free company. It'll save you £12 if you really are interested. But then you have a company, that parent company, that becomes company A that you prepare, becomes a fully owned owner of company B. So everything that you have, your shareholding, you're selling to company A. Please do take advice on CGT on this, because there might be CGT payable on transfer of shares, because you're transferring shares from yourself to the new entity you will form.
Can I come on this because it's something?
Please go ahead.
It's something
yes,
I do on a regular and consistent basis.
Didn't realize you were on the call.
So if you have a company and you set up a subsidiary of that company, the only thing that you have to consider is that when it's a subsidiary into the holding company, that you will be restricted to the amount of lenders that will lend linked to a holding company. But in essence, if it's set up correctly, and Kunal send you the right link, there's no SDLT to pay, and there's no corporation tax, because you have corporation tax relief and SDLT relief when you have an intercompany transfer or purchase. So the first thing is get rid of your accountant. He's useless. Simple. If he doesn't know the basics of this, then he's just not the right accountant for you. He's not a property accountant, and he could cost you thousands of pounds. And there's many accountants that give advice that they shouldn't be giving advice, especially around tax, corporation tax, SDLT. So that's what you need to do. It's a very simple structure. What I would suggest is you ask a few people who their accountants are and who their solicitors are, so they can do it simultaneously. It's really your solicitor that will deal with the transaction, because your solicitor is the person responsible for paying SDLT at the time of the refinance. So the only thing that you have to worry about is the right structure, the right shares, the right memorandum and articles. And I wouldn't suggest that you pay £12.50. I would suggest that you go to an accountant and pay the £200, get the company set up correctly. It's your first one. You don't want to do it incorrectly. Once you do it a few times, you know what to do. So your memorandum articles, your share structure, however that wants to be. Even with the holding company, you may want to put things in the future and have A and B shares that you might want to bring some family members into the actual company. So the first thing is go to a lawyer that really understands intercompany transactions and transfers. Your accountant really has nothing to do with this at all. It's all done with the solicitor. So provided your solicitor knows the structure, they're the ones who are going to make representation for you under the SDLT. Very simple process, set it up correctly, pay a little bit more. I often say, if you think the cost of good advice is expensive, try the cost of poor advice or even your own advice. So pay the money, pay the professional, do it the right way, and but you will be limited to a certain amount of lenders.
Yeah.
Some of them, and you'll have to create a separate freehold entity. So the freehold company and the leasehold company can't be the same. So that's the structure that you're going to need to create when you set it all up. And then from there, it's fairly straightforward. But you will be restricted to certain lenders, and some lenders will want a comfort charge over the freehold. So you may not want to go with the same lender for all four. You might want to split it up with a couple of different lenders. The rates will be a little bit more, marginally, and that's because you're putting it into intercompany structure purchase. The other thing I will say is most banks do not like intercompany purchases when it comes to bank accounts. So one of the banks that do offer it and are very happy to do so is Metro Bank. They're very simple. They understand the structure. Barclays won't open any of the ones that I want to currently. They did in the past. People like Starling won't even start the application. So Metro are the bank that you should go with. They're very simple, very easy to do. Open up the account, and they're a very good bank.
Okay. So just to clarify.
The reason, Emmanuel, I mentioned them, Tide, was because we actually did this with Tide and they were quite happy to do that. The other thing is, I think she already owns the property within the limited company of which she's the shareholder. So that will now be, it's not at the on day one acquisition. This will now be probably a subsidiary company or some, either above that company or below that company, some sort of subsidiary has to be created. So
yeah, that's the point I want to clarify. Do I need a holding company or a subsidiary company?
No, you create a subsidiary company, but the company that you have becomes the holding company.
Right, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
You leave the freehold in the existing company.
Yeah.
You transfer the leases to the new subsidiary company.
All right, got it.
The leases sit within the subsidiary company.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively,
actually go down rather than up, which I suggested go up. Instead of going up, go down. So you create a subsidiary and then you grant your leases to the subsidiary, which will leave your freehold in the existing company that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can take into account the SDLTM 23010 and 23020 manuals, and then that'll do the trick for you. That'll solve the problem.
Got it.
no, brilliant.
Thank you so
Great
much.
question, Tammy.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Tammy. Thank you, Kundan. Thank you, Emmanuel, for coming in there. Alternatively, what one of the other things that you could do is keep the 4 leases where they are in the company they are. So then move the freehold. So if you move the freehold, and that's below the stamp duty threshold, then that may be something that you could do. But you need to again check with a solicitor. As Emmanuel said, it's a solicitor that actually deals with the stamp duty situation. It's them who are filling the form in, but it's they will try and pass it on to the accountant and say, please check with your accountant, and you can always go back. And so yeah, and I think that's correct. And also Emmanuel's point on setting the company up correctly, because it's the articles of association and everything else which is so important. On the online portals, you'll get a standard one, and that may not be sufficient for what you need for certainly for inheritance and going forward, etc. There is a real good book I've been reading, which is called The 6 Steps to Financial Freedom. I've got it here by Emmanuel. So this is on Amazon. Fantastic book, fantastic value on there. Like, yeah, it's so easy to read. You can dip in and out. And there's some light bulb moments as well, so that you can remember those and take them away. Yeah. So go to Amazon, get that book. I'm not on any commission, as I keep telling people, but when somebody presents you with so much value, you think, yeah, I've got to go in and do those as well. And I'll maybe bring up some other books in a minute, just so that you don't think that I'm being biased to my good friend here. But no, thank you for coming on, and great advice. Anything that you want to add to what I've said about moving the freehold? Is that a good option? Emmanuel, Brian, Kundan?
Yeah, no, you can do that. Most people have the holding company and they transfer it down. That's normally the actual process, and they can keep repeating that process every time they buy another property.
The freehold transfer can only happen outwards, Sunil, if the leases are already demised. So we don't know. I mean, I don't have the full details of the case, but Temi, have the leases been demised already?
It can all be done at the same time.
Correct. But then she's saying this is post facto. Hold on, this is post facto. What Temi's problem is, she already is the freeholder of the block. So it can't happen.
That's not a problem. If she owns the freehold, provided the leases haven't been created, the leases can be passed down simultaneously into the subsidiary company on the same day. If they're already being created, then there's an issue. But my understanding is they haven't been created. So
not yet created. No, not yet.
Yeah, that's straightforward then for you.
Thank you. Thanks again.
So any other, Tammy, did that give you some fruit for thought?
Yeah, I'm getting a new solicitor. I'm getting a new solicitor ASAP.
And I think, you know, not all solicitors are the same. And I think Emmanuel said this so many times. It's really getting to find out what that you need that solicitor for. We have a solicitor for conveyancing. We have a solicitor for share agreements. We have a solicitor that's doing company transfers, etc., etc. So there are lots of different solicitors that you need. If it's commercial, if it's residential, so it's not just any solicitor. It's a combination of a team of people around you. It may be a lease specialist, etc. And I think the other lease specialist that I do know is called Bernie Welsh. And he's amazing gentleman that does leases, and I can see if I can find his details. He's been on here a number of times as well. So yeah, thank you. Can you keep us posted of what you do and how it all goes?
Yeah, definitely. I will.
I've given details of my solicitor in the chat if anybody wants to use them. I don't receive any commission from them. It's just you know, I've used them previously for these sort of title split cases, and they've done fairly well. So if anybody wants to use Bond Adams, they're available.
Yeah,
I think they're based in Midlands.
Yeah, brilliant, and thank you for doing that. We're going through a lot of title splits at the moment, because, you know, we're reviewing our portfolio and seeing where we can add value, see where we can get these leases done. So we appointed an architect who's gone to the property, make sure that the plans are as they require by land registry. Then we pass them to the solicitor, and then the solicitor takes those, creates the leases, and then we can get a mortgage and move on. So there is a process. That was the process very quickly. Thank you, Booby. Sorry, I got your name wrong, but thank you for putting the link to the Emmanuel's book. Appreciate that, and I'm sure he does. And thank you, Craig, for putting the link into Bernie Wales. Appreciate that. It's good to have your support here, Craig, and putting that on there so quickly. Any other questions on leases before we carry on? We have a lease expert here as well. I think he's he was here just a minute ago. Jason Patterson. Good evening. Are you there? Okay, he's here, but he's just jumped off. So
just ask him what he does for a living, and he'll come and tell you.
I've been trying to get hold of this guy to come on and talk here. He's so active in our WhatsApp group every day, so he's brilliant. But yeah, come and join us and see if you can answer any questions. Tammy, I hope that helps you a little bit, and we'll talk soon. Daniel, good evening.
Hi, Sunil. Hi, everyone.
You okay?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank you. And
sorry, just one quick question. Yes, so for blocks, flats, etc., I've always thought, as you have discussed, really, the company structure, and then you do leases, etc., and then you put them on individual buy-to-let, split them up. However, there was a lady at a networking event I was at last week, and she does blocks of flats, and I was saying, what in regards to what she does for the title splits, because she just rents them out, and she said she doesn't, split them up at all. That she, gets lending based upon that aggregate value. So I was just wondering, everyone else's experience on that versus actually splitting it up.
so can you clarify your question? Is that she's getting it on, she's got blocks, she's got properties, number of flats on a single title,
Yeah.
and she's saying that she's getting lending on there?
Yeah, and I asked her in regards to the lending,
Yeah.
How does that work out? Loan to value, is it high rates, etc.? And she said, no, not at all. Pretty much as a buy to let, which I was a bit shocked about. So
You've got to look at it from the lender's point of view. And again, Emmanuel will come in here if you wish to, but the lender will be able to say, is can I sell this block of flats in one go? And is that going to limit my market? I have a block of 6 flats on a single title, and currently that's with Handels Banken, and great, good service, but their loan to value was something like 50%. They wanted a debenture, they wanted a personal guarantee, they wanted all this. So now that I'm in the fixed 5-year fixed, I know I'm going to come out there in 2 years. So what I'm now doing is getting the leases prepared. I'm getting the title plans drawn up, doing all the work, so that when I exit that particular lender, I've got more choice. So I can get maybe from 3 properties what I've already got to pay back, and if I need to get more money, then I can go for the others, or I can leave it, with one. So it gives me more options. I'm not sure, Daniel, what that lady's doing.
yeah. From basically what you said, that was my understanding too, and yeah, she completely flipped my thinking upside down on that one, because I was thinking, am I missing something? But yeah, I'm not sure.
You're not missing anything. It's about flexibility. So when you have one block with one lender, they have total control of the block. If you want total flexibility to be able to refinance or sell any individual flat on your own, it gives you the most amount of flexibility. It will predominantly give you the highest loan to value, and you can use a multitude of lenders to be able to maximize the loan to value. So if that's her strategy and her business plan that works for her. Most people create the separate leases to give yourself the flexibility and not have all your eggs or in one basket. Effectively gives you much more flexibility and gives you the whole choice of the marketplace. And that's really the difference between having it with one lender who take a charge on the whole property, and depending on the lender's terms and conditions, when you sell a property, they may take the full sell proceeds to reduce it. When you have it on an individual buy-to-let, they'll only take it on the mortgage that's related to that property. So it depends on what flexibility that you want and the loan to value. There's no right or wrong. It's what your comfort zone is based on your own strategy.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you,
brilliant.
everyone.
And Daniel, the other thing is about the density. So if a lender, they will not want lending on a block or they won't want it all in one street and things like that, just in case the market changes. So in my situation where I've got 6, I'll go one lender, maybe 3, another lender, another 3, and they're happier to do that situation. Or it could be 3 lenders with 2 each, etc. But again, yeah, that flexibility. But you've got to look at it that if it's one lender, and Handelsbank has been brilliant, but if it's one lender, their market is limited, because they're looking then if they have to sell, they get in repossession. That's what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about lending you money. They're thinking, what if Daniel doesn't pay us back? And in that situation, they're going, well, who is our customer going to be? It's going to be another investor. So of course, that limits their market. So the amount they will lend you will always be less, as Emmanuel said. So the best thing to do, in my view, title split, get the best maximum value if you need it.
There is one other thing that a lot of people don't realise with a commercial mortgage where you lend on one freehold, is they will have a different loan to value covenant. And if you breach that covenant, they can ask you to pay down the mortgage or force you to sell. And they'll often have in their mortgage terms that you have to have the property valued every 2 or 3 years. So I think you'll find this year, there'll be a lot of banks asking their commercial customers to revalue their properties to see if they're in breach of the loan to value covenant. And that's one of the reasons for having the flexibility of not having it with one lender.
Yeah, brilliant point there, Emmanuel. So I'll give you an example. Just down the road here, we've got Holiday Inn. Before it became the Holiday Inn, a private individual had bought the hotel that was for sale 10 years ago. And he had a loan with a bank, and he did nothing wrong. He was investing in the property. He'd actually got the property ready, and he'd actually taken bookings for weddings and everything else. It was all moving nicely. The market changed, and because their loan to value dropped, and they have a stop loss at a point, their loan to value dropped, they called in the mortgage. Yeah, and he went back to sue the bank. And as Emmanuel said, it says in the terms and conditions that they can ask for that to be done. I have another situation where a friend of mine in Canterbury has some properties. He's with a bank, and it's the same situation. It's a commercial loan, and they need to hit their loan to value, always needs to be at 65 or whatever %. So they think the market has dropped, so they're asking for repayments to go up. So commercial loans, very, very different. And in 2016, when the Section 24 came in, or just before in March, I was going to go to one lender like NatWest and things like that. NatWest, and I was speaking to Barclays and I was speaking to Handelsbank, and we nearly got to a deal. And for whatever reason, those deals didn't go through. And I was so grateful those deals didn't go through, because they would have had total control, number one. And number two, if the market dropped, they would have started saying, right, we need you back. We need the loan to value back to what we need it to be. And I met the banker from Barclays from London, and he explained everything. And he was like, we don't mess around. We need to hit our figures. And this is what you're getting into. So yeah, very good point there, Emmanuel, about the commercial loans as well. Michael, I know you wanted to come in on the split title about Bernie, so please feel free to unmic and do that. Thanks for joining us this evening, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. Yeah, it's just on this strategy of whether or not to split or unsplit. It's just my own personal circumstances, but with when you're looking to sell on the units, it's obviously better to split. But my broker doesn't like my finance broker doesn't like the title split because it's much harder to actually deal with the lending side of things, because of lenders can see that you own the whole block, and then if you do get repossessed, then that does cause quite a few problems. But it really depends upon your exit strategy, whether you want to go for buy, sell on. I think one reasonable strategy that I've tried to follow is that you do a mixture of both. sell on some, and then keep 2 or 3 in a block, and then try and refinance those. So that tends to, I think that's worth considering, sort of as a strategy moving forward.
Yeah, brilliant. I totally agree. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Yeah.
Mr. O has asked a question. Are you there? I don't know if you want to unmute. The question in the chat is, can you give a brief explanation of title splitting? I'm happy to do that. If anybody else wants to step in, I'm happy to listen. I know what you're going to say, Michael. You're going to give what Bernie told you.
Well, I think I might be repeating him, but it's a bit like going into a supermarket and buying a 6-pack of Coke. So effectively what you do is that you get a discount. So you get all the Coke tins, and then, you know, each individual Coke tin is obviously worth a lot more. And then what you've got at the end is that you've got the tray itself, and the tray itself is the freehold. So that's what's left, and that has value in itself. So a lot of people forget that the freehold itself can be of great value, and that's where Bernie has helped me in trying to actually increase the value of the freehold. Things have moved on since then with regards to the way freeholds, the interaction between freeholders and leaseholders. So obviously it's less favourable now, but still that general thing still applies. So I think that's my sort of take on it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Bernie, and I'll give him credit for where credit's due. This is what he shared with me. Is if you imagine Costa in the morning, they buy a whole cake for £12, and they split it into 12 pieces. So they are your 12 properties or your 12 pieces. And then what happens is that the shop, Costa, is selling those for £3 each. So you can see the value's gone up from £12 for the whole cake to £36 by cutting it into small pieces. And that's exactly the principle, and Michael's touched on the freehold as well at the base, but that's where you get the value increase by splitting it. And of course it's got more value because your market is also opened up from a purchaser point of view, which is the key really, because there are more purchasers out there who may maybe buy one slice of cake rather than the whole lot, or they'll buy one flat rather than 6 or 7 or 8 flats, unless you're investors like us. Anybody want to add to that? Emmanuel,
I wasn't sure whether this is a coffee meet or a Coca-Cola Sainsbury meet.
It's a coffee meet, mate. You know, whatever you're drinking tonight is acceptable because you're in your own. But no, it's splitting the cakes, and I think I love these stories that people share with us because it helps me to remember so much that I can visualize the cake, etc. So next time you go into Costa, you just got to look at that, because Costa's doing exactly the same. They're cutting the cakes up, but the building is probably not owned by Costa, they're renting it, etc., etc. So I'll move on from that. But Tammy, you've got another question, so please feel free to unmute. Whoever, Mr. O, did that answer your question? And if you can't talk or unmute, just put a yes or no in the question in the chat box. Tammy?
Yeah, thanks, Sunil. Just somebody said something and it triggered the question in my mind. I guess as a sort of growing and aspiring developer on my journey, how do you kind of balance your exposure? I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but your overexposure to lenders in terms of not being overexposed to lenders. I think, Sunil, you said that the example you gave, that person's, the bank they reclaim back the loan or something like that, or they reclaim back the loan. But how do you sort of balance that in your journey as you're building your portfolio so you're not overexposed?
The different situation, as in that one, that was a commercial loan. so that they've gone to the bank for loans. They're not mortgages. So they have different regulations. I mean, some of the things is don't go to the same lender, because the same, you know, if you as you build up a big portfolio, if you're with the same lender and something happens, then that can be a problem in their relationship, etc. And I know some people do go to the same lender because it's the best deal for them, but that would be my one thing. Also, don't hold all your companies in one particular company. So 2000, 2006, 2007, when, you know, things were going to start happening, I have a separate company called Moneybox Limited, and I hold 7 flats in there, and that money goes into there. And the whole situation is that if my main business went down or something happened to my main business, I could have the seed capital to start again and to survive and to continue. So maybe holding things in different companies, and also don't go with the same lender, because if that lender's changed, then don't do the same strategy. But again, Emmanuel, did you want to come in there? Kundan, if you're still there.
I think the main difference is people don't understand the difference between a commercial mortgage and a mortgage. So commercial funding isn't by definition a mortgage. So if you go to a normal buy-to-let mortgage, they don't have the loan to value covenant. So going to a commercial lender like Handels Bank or a Barclays loan, they will have covenants. Even people like Aldermore, they have 2 divisions. They have a commercial division, they have a buy-to-let division, and they're 2 different terms and conditions. So you need to understand the type of loan that you're taking out. Is it a mortgage or is it a commercial loan? And you restrict your ability to be go within the loan to value covenant if you have a commercial mortgage. If you have a residential mortgage, you're protected for the full 25 years, provided you make your payments on time. There's nothing the lender can do, whether you have 1 mortgage with them or 20 mortgages with the same lender. So that gives you the security with a buy-to-let mortgage compared to a commercial mortgage.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Tammy, again. Dan, you put in the question, you've just joined us, and that you was a builder, and great that you joined us. The situation with title split solicitors without incurring stamp duty, Kundan has put a link above that explains what you need to do, but the solicitor is getting the right solicitor to help you in terms of the stamp duty situation. And this is recorded as well, so you'll be able to go back and listen to the recording at the beginning. I think it's quite a long discussion. First 20 minutes was probably about that. So yeah, changing it into companies, etc. So there is a link that Kundan's kindly posted up top. Any other questions that or discussion points that people would like to bring up?
I think there was another question to ask what the exact process is of title splitting.
Yeah, as I said, I think that's what Dan said, and I think Kundan's given the links. But if you're going through a solicitor, the process is very simple. The solicitor will ask you for a plan. Now, it's not a plan that an estate agent would do. It's not a floor plan. It is like a floor plan, but there has to be correct measurements. It has to be done in a correct format that land registry will accept. And an architect, you appoint an architect initially, and you can give them floor plans, and you can give them, if you've just built it out, as build drawings or whatever's on the portal. But that if they're a good architect, they will go to the property, they will do their due diligence, they will check everything. And it's vital that they do go there, and you don't maybe try and save money, because they will charge you to visit, and you think, oh no, I've just given you a few plans, just do it off there, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, this is your asset, and the correct splits are going to be important. If they're not, then you'll get issues with rights of way, this person and the corridor's not in the right place, or etc., etc. And especially, I've got 2 flats at the moment with title splitting, but who belong the staircase? Does it belong to the top flat, the bottom flat, the freeholder? So yeah, it stays with the freeholder at the moment. and the two leases have the front doors on them, and that's how we've done it. But always get a good architect to go there, do the drawings, and a good solicitor to draw up the leases, the plans, go to the solicitor, and the solicitor then draws the leases up. Then you're ready at a point, then you can get finance on there as well. Anybody want to come in on that explanation?
Do you want me to show a live example of what we've just completed, I think about 10, 12 days ago on something? So I've got a live example of a title.
Yeah, if everybody's happy to do that, I'm happy. You're getting the thumbs up from Daniel?
Perfect. All right. Okay, I'll show you. I'll just share my screen again. Hopefully everybody is able to see my screen.
Yeah. Can
everybody see my screen? Okay, perfect. Right, ignore the other ones. So this, we just completed this purchase about 10, 15 days ago, 20 days. Yeah, 5th of July, as you can see, the date is here. The lease between two parties, both of them are my companies. I'm the director on both the companies. Essentially, long and short of it, I sign as the leaseholder, executed as a deed by the lessee, executed as a deed by the lessor. And then eventually this is a long lease document that your solicitor must write for you. But at the end of the whole thing, there is a plan where the lessee and the lessor, i.e. the one granting the lease and the one receiving the lease, or in simple words, the landlord and the tenant must sign. This is that plan that Sunil was referring to. It's unfortunately in PDF form, so I can't quite turn this around, but you can see that the whole space has been demised into specific areas, saying this is the private area of this particular building. That's the private area in red. The shared space is in blue. If you can see, the front courtyard is shared space between all parties, and the lessee and the landlord and the tenant. Me acting as a landlord, I have signed it. Me acting again second time as a tenant, I've signed it. So this is a live example of how your lease documents will look. Now, what this means is I can go and tomorrow, if I wanted to, I could very well, these are now marketable leases with 125 years of leases on them. So I can go and sell them on the market now if I want. I can sell this property on the market if I wanted to, really. So long and short of it, this is how your documents will look like. There's nothing magical about this, but this is, this is what your solicitor must give you.
Yeah, excellent. And where did you come up with a figure of 125 years? Because that's often a question. I mean, some people do 150, 200. I've got one landlord at the moment. He's decided to do 999-year lease. So any thoughts on the length?
It's an important question, right? Now, here's the thing. We don't intend to sell any of these properties, at least for the short or medium term. We have no interest in selling these properties. We'll just, refinance and hold them to perpetuity. That's the current plan. With that in mind, 125 years is a standard lease that you want to write. At the very minimum, you don't want 99-year leases, because then again, there's work that'll emerge. If it's 20 years later, you want to sell it, you don't want to be again extending the lease before selling it. So 125 years gives you the comfort. Albeit you can do a 200 years, you can do a 999 years. I don't think there's necessarily an answer to it. The only thing you need to realize is obviously the value of your freehold diminishes even further the longer the lease is. If the lease is for 999 years, the freehold will be effectively worthless. I say effectively because it's not going to be renewed anytime soon. So there's no easy answer to this, but it depends on your circumstances. Well, I think Emmanuel will probably have an interesting view on this. I also see Jason Patterson on this call. Jason is an expert on leases, short lease extensions, etc. Is the short lease king. I don't know if Jason is available to talk.
He's not.
He might be able to throw some.
He's available. He's actually texted me and said he's not able to mute, but he will join us another time. So yeah,
right, okay.
But he's on the WhatsApp group every day. So if you've got any specific questions, then please feel free to reach out to him as well. we're finishing in about 4 or 5 minutes. There's a large question came in. I'm not sure who that's from, but if you'd like to unmute, any pointers? Are there any SA experts here?
So the question is from me, actually.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
So recently what happened is I've changed the use of my property from buy-to-let to a service accommodation. It has only been running for 2 months. Before starting, I did approach the council to ask whether I need to change the use of my property from C3 to C1. The council asked me a couple of questions, and they said, are you going to be letting it out room by room basis? And I said, no, actually, I'll be letting my property as a whole. So they said, you do not require any permission. They have given me in writing. But recently, while I was away on holiday, I came back yesterday only. I've received a letter from the council saying unauthorized use of my property. And if I do not reply or end the use of my property, I'll be fined £5,000 for that. So I'm kind of very confused. Where did I go wrong?
I think if you have it in writing, you didn't necessarily go wrong, but which department did you get it in writing from? Because the council departments don't talk to each other. So it may be that housing said, or environmental health that you may have got it from, may have said yes, but planning have decided to enforce that. So do you know who actually gave you the initial bit of information?
It might have been the duty planner on the day I spoke to, but she took a week to reply back to me. She said she'll have to get in touch with the planning officer because that was not her expertise, and she will consult them and she'll get back to me. So in a week's time, she wrote back to me and she said, you do not require any permission. And yet I have got this letter now.
But you've got the original paperwork as well, is that correct?
Yeah.
So I would write to them and ask the question, because first of all, professionalism and acknowledging their letter. You're not admitting to anything, you're just acknowledging and thanking them for their letter, because opening up a communication channel is got to be the best situation in any event, because a council will only start taking action, legal action, if you're not in communication. So the first thing is to communicate and put the ball back in their court and say, you supplied me with this letter on this particular date, and this is what it says. Please, could you explain the change that you've now, because it's, I'm at a loss to understand. That would be my first thing, and wait for them to come back and start a good record and keep an excellent file, because again, that's going to be important to you if it goes any further. But yes, I'd be in the same situation as you are, having been told it's okay, and now they're coming back, having checked their situation. Anybody want to come in on that? Emmanuel, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'd reply slightly differently. I'd reply with the communication letter you have, but I'd start off by saying, I'm slightly confused by the communication I just received from your department. I have a letter confirming that I can use this property as service accommodation. I trust that you'll liaise with the relevant department and confirm likewise. Put it from a stance that you have it, you've got the confirmation, and you're not doing anything wrong, but just saying, I'm confused by your letter, seeing as I've already got confirmation, permission from your other department. Please liaise with them directly.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant advice.
Can I just ask, Sunil, sorry, I just wanted to actually ask this as a question for me to learn a bit more on this. So we operate, we've just in the last year or so started operating holiday rentals and Airbnbs, booking.com and stuff. So we don't have too many of them. I think we've only got 5-6 units now that we are doing, 5-6 properties. But the question I had, and this is for those who operate serviced accommodation, purely on the planning side of it. Now, can councils strictly speaking, enforce the requirement for planning application? I know the London 90-day rule and everything exists, but I'm talking specifically outside of London. Let's say if you've got a property, I don't know, somewhere in Kent, it could be anywhere, Medway, Maidstone, Sittingbourne, Gravesend, anywhere. Pick a location, and you're renting that as on Airbnb and Booking.com. Is there a legal obligation on you for councils to now push? Can councils push you to require planning permission for change from C3 to C1, or can you just operate just like millions of other people are? I mean, a lot of people won't even bother asking that question.
So,
what is the law?
so
This was more for Emmanuel and others who Emmanuel, Imran, Sunil, anybody else who wants to come in with an expert view on this.
Well, I have a number of service accommodation residential properties, and I just informed the council I'm operating them as a holiday or short-term let. I apply for business rates, and it's been a very straightforward process without any issues, provided they're not in London. The ones in London have been an issue. Outside London, I haven't experienced any issues whatsoever.
But that's brilliant. I think, Kundan, your question is around the planning, correct?
Yes, my question is specifically around planning, as you know. So what Emmanuel said is what, I guess what a lot of us are anyways doing, which is, get it set up, put it on the market, put your listings up, start providing good service, apply for, depending on what your council tax position is. I mean, if you already are over the 15K threshold, then you don't want to be applying for business rates. All of those things exist, right? So I'm not going into business rates versus council tax and all of those. That's a whole different ballgame. But let's say all of that is done. Can councils come back to you and say, hang on a moment, you're running this as a C1, and therefore we now ask you to apply for C1? Is there any, outside of London, is there any precedence of this? Has this ever happened to anybody? Is there any known case law around this?
No, but I can reach out to a couple of people, Dave, etc., and they maybe come back to you. All I can say is an example for me is around HMOs, where you've got a HMO license. Planning don't get involved, but planning could get involved, and planning can step in after 6 units, or they may decide to step in at any stage and go, actually, we want to get information or put restrictions on because it's in a certain area. So different, you can get a license for HMO, just on that example, got nothing to do with planning until planning come along and say something from a planning perspective. But with serviced accommodation, I don't have that knowledge, but I'm happy to put you in contact with somebody.
And along the same lines, as an extension to that question, what difference would it make if I were to be renting by the room? Because there is, practically from a, yes, how you were going to set up the house and all of that is one thing, but as I think Meenakshi was saying that she was asked that question. If you were to be renting by the room, what difference does that make? Why would that then make it or not make it into a C1? And that's a very valid question.
If you're renting on room by room basis, then it will fall into the category of C1, like a hotel. That's what I have been told by the council. But if you're not doing it on a room by room basis, and if you are,
who defines it? This has to be in the planning laws, bylaws. Is this defined in the Housing Act 2004, 1986, 1996? Which version of law is this in?
That's what
who defines this? Yeah, this is I mean, the clarity on this, like for instance, what a C4 HMO is very clearly defined in section 254, 257 of Housing Act 2004. You can go look that up. You can go and challenge the HMO office, which I have done, by the way, in the past. HMO officers asking for all sorts of frivolous things. And I've said, tell me where in section 257 of the Act does it say I need to provide these things? So my question is slightly more technical, which is, who says what qualifies as a guest house or a C1 hotel and what qualifies as a holiday rental? This is dom, non-dom sort of a question, right? So
No,
you're
I think-
domiciled here, but you say you're non-domiciled. It's that sort of a question. I don't think there's a clear answer to this.
Yeah, well, I think that the question is brilliant. And again, Craig has stepped in with a link there from the Planning Geek, and Ian's fantastic with all the planning stuff. I don't know the answer, but we can find out. But I think it is knowing that. And again, in the HMO situation, we had some work done in our town in 2018, and we created lots of HMOs. And the HMO and the council came along and said, right, you've got to close all these down because you've created these HMOs, you haven't got licenses, etc. A lady in our office is very good and legally, sort of loves the law. She found the clause that said if they are coming from abroad and helping on certain projects, that we didn't need a license because they were temporary workers. So the classification, and I think that's what you're getting at, Kundan, is knowing that part of the law, we were able to send that back to the council and say, please check this, and it says this, temporary workers, got permanent residents abroad, we don't need a HMO license. They came back and thanked us very much after our email and they moved on. So knowing that situation is absolutely vital. So yeah, we'll get that as well.
Alistair has a very interesting point here.
It is, yeah. We'll pick up on it at another time because I have run out of time because I need to go. But there is one more question in the chat. I think that's a question. Currently having planning appeal against.
I was going to say, Sanal, that if you just go to that web page I've linked in there, it tells you all the things about the C1 categorization. So C1 is basically where individual rooms are rented. But where the lady is renting the entire property, then that technically falls into C3 because she's letting it to a family. And it actually defines the family under a particular section, which is section 258 of the Housing Act 2004. But basically follow the link on there and read the details.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Craig, just on that point, I was literally going to say that I just mentioned a few seconds ago about the section 257 for C4 HMO. You're absolutely right on the section 258 for C3. However, in C1, and this is exactly as I'm just looking at Planning Geek, there is no reference to what section of the Housing Act that C1 use class applies to. So how do you say? So it says here, I'm looking at the link, it says use as a hotel or a boarding or a guest house where in each case no significant element of care is provided. Now that's good, but then unless that is specifically defined in the Housing Act 2004, how will that apply or not apply? How do you argue that section 258 does not exist if I'm renting by the room? Why would section 258 of Housing Act not apply?
Yeah, if you follow the links in Ian's example to the class uses order 1987, etc., it then actually tells you the detail in there. Obviously, the Planning Geek is like a summary document to make it easy to define. But if you then follow the link, you should probably get all the details there. But the definition is about whether it's hotels, guest houses, bed and breakfasts. They're let to many people, so they're not deemed to be a family. Whereas the lady's letting her entire property, so therefore it just falls under C3.
I think Imran's point is very valid here. What he's saying is a C5 use class. This has been floated just a few days ago. So I think that is also pretty, solid point, because all of this whole idea of renting by the room or renting your spare room or your house while you're away, all of this did not exist, 15, 20 years ago, before the advent of Web 2.0, 3.0. All of this did not exist in the manner that it does today. So people are using properties much differently than even when the Housing Act 2004 was written, probably. It's been almost 19 years now. Airbnb did not exist 19 years ago.
No, Kundan, it's a fantastic question. Gavin's come in there as well. And he says it defines it in the town and country planning uses class orders 1987. So if you could come back to us, Kundan, with all the answers that you've created as soon as possible, that'd be really appreciated, because I think that's a fantastic question that we'll all appreciate an answer to.
Absolutely.
If you wish to carry on, Kundan, please, I'm good because I need to go because I need to go and see my mum. But if you want to carry on, I'm okay. If not, then thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll be on Clubhouse tomorrow morning, 7:30. We're talking about amateur landlords versus professional landlords. So and I can't remember the date of our next in-person meeting. We'd love to see you in person. If we could just book your tickets early, because we do provide a buffet on the night as well. And we need to give the venue enough notice of how many people are coming. Last month, we had 8 people booked in on the Friday, and I think we had 30 people in the room. So they were like, you know, we don't know what to do and how much food to order, etc. And they don't want to over order or under order. So they're very good venue, reasonable prices and everything else, but we'd really appreciate you booking in early. The links, Dan's put a link in there for our WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group's free, as is this Zoom call. So if you need anything, join the WhatsApp group, then you'll get notifications of the Zoom meetings, in-person meetings, etc. And yeah, I'm available. You know where to find me. So if you need anything, please reach out. Emmanuel, Craig, Brian, thank you. Imran, also thank you for your contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all your questions. It's been a great interesting conversation. Kundan, thank you for taking the time to share your deals and share your screen. It just brings everything to life as it did last month, so appreciate that. Right, that's me done, and I shall see you. We can talk to each other 7:30 in the morning. If not, we'll catch you very soon at the next meeting. If you're in Sittingbourne, please feel free to pop in for coffee and cake, if we've got cake on the day. And so have a fantastic evening, happy investing, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone. See you, good evening.
See you later, guys. Take care.
Take care, bye-bye.
Thank you.